All right, today is episode 3 of the Iowa Girls Wrestling Stories podcast. Today I'm going to be welcoming Iowa Central Community College assistant coach April Ritts. How are you doing today, April?
Good. How are you?
Very good. So April has a lot of titles and wears a lot of hats. Coach at Iowa Central. You were a college wrestler at Waldorf. A Fargo All American, probably one of Iowa's first, I'm assuming, from the time frame. USGWA national place winner. You wrestled for Manson NW Webster, and actually got to wrestle at the state duels. And probably most important title you have is mom. Did I
Yes.
miss anything in there?
Um, that sounds about right. And help with the little girls club here in Fort Dodge.
Oh, yes, I missed that. Sorry.
Yep.
So Iowa Central, this is your second year. How are things going there? And actually, how did you get into the job at Iowa Central?
So last year I reached out to head coach Zach Hensley, and I was interested in getting my foot in the door. So last year I was more on the volunteer basis, and when I could get there, I would get into practices and go to some of the tournaments with the girls. And getting my foot in the door made it where when the position came open, I applied, and it sounded like I was the right fit. So I got the position. And I think having a female on the coaching staff is like a great thing. And it's very much needed for both sides, for the coach and for the girls.
Yeah.
I think it can be hard being a man running, 30 girls around and trying to understand their personalities and some of their issues. And so I feel like being a female on that part always helps out.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Have a female on my staff. Not that she's not a good coach. It's just for that purpose is those handling things that I really don't understand. So that is great.
Yes.
2-year schools, there's some really good benefits to being at a 2-year school. When you're recruiting, what are those benefits that you tell kids about?
Definitely our price. And we have, like Iowa Central, we have great facilities. We have great programs to get these students started. And then if they decide, they want to go to a 4-year after that, we help push them to get to that point. And if that's their goal, we're gonna help build them academically and on the mat to get to that point where we can help them get recruited by a 4-year college.
And I think it's really cool, like at Iowa Central or any of the community colleges, you want to continue your wrestling career, but let's say you want to be an automotive person. There's not very many 4-year schools that are going to give you that opportunity. So it opens up some different doors depending on your interest. I really like that.
Oh, yes. Iowa Central has many different options. We actually have one of our girls is in the diesel tech this year, and we have nurses like all across the board. We have our athletes are in all sorts of different programs, and that's kind of like the best part about Iowa Central is we have such a diverse team and diverse group of girls that they're gonna grow past this sport, and they're gonna really succeed in life.
What are some of the challenges though for being at a 2-year school as opposed to recruiting to a 4-year?
Definitely think it's hard to every year you're recruiting in the next batch of girls. Maybe you have 10 or 15 that graduate or move on to a 4-year, and then you're automatically having to kind of reboost that team with the next group of girls that are coming in, whether they're freshmen or transfers. I feel like that's probably one of the harder things, but also it's nice to keep fresh and keep a new group in, and they can grow from those sophomores that are there. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things is definitely that 2-year always having to get that new group of girls in and not rebuilding the team, but growing from those sophomores and getting those freshmen in there and having those sophomores help push them, and the coaches help build that team back to where we're looking to get is to like a national title. So
God, I think that's very attainable. It's Iowa. Is it? Who's been winning?
Indian Hills.
Indian
Yep.
Hills has been kind of the top of the 2 year schools. I really think that Iowa's doing a great job in including the 2 year option. And well, I was just way ahead of everybody else in all women's wrestling, I think, period, with as many schools that have it, which also makes it hard because there's a lot of competition in recruiting. Um, the staff at Iowa Central, who all do you work with? And kind of when we're talking about working with who you're working with, what's some of the philosophies that your coaching staff has?
So head coach is Zach Hensley. He's started this program. I think this is the third year officially. And then I'm the assistant coach. We have our returning national champ in the room every day, helping build the program. And she's hoping to go on to a 4 year after this, after she finishes her degree. And just the people that help on the business side too, getting the girls in their classes and all that. But back to Coach Hensley, he's a great coach. He knows a lot about wrestling, and he can bring the intensity to the practice and keep the flow going, and um, just very smart guy. Like, he brings a lot to the mat and has that personality to keep the girls engaged and wanting to learn. And he wants to win just as much as the girls do. And I feel like you need that fire to keep the girls excited and going, because the wrestling season can be long. It's, we start preseason. We just got on the mat. We're in our regular season right now. And before you know it, we're going to be November. We're going to be hitting the mat and competing. So
Yeah, it is a long grind. One thing I've always appreciated about Iowa Central and Zach is that I don't know what we're calling it now, but it started as the East West duels. I think it's the Triton duels now. Bringing in those high schools and having a great dual tournament. That was Joe Cohn out at Eastern Iowa, was kind of his idea, and we were struggling to find a place to have it. And Zach hopped right on, and Iowa Central has done a fantastic job with that. So I don't know if you were there. I think you were. Yeah, you were there
yeah, I
last
was
year.
there last year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yep,
I
I
mean
was help
that's
running some tables. And yeah,
yeah,
I think, yeah, that's a awesome opportunity to get some different girls, some bigger matches, and some different teams that you don't see all the time, and to run it as a dual tournament. That's always fun, because I don't know, I feel like a dual, you're getting a lot more team camaraderie and that hype of a dual, rather than a regular tournament where it's just a flow constant all day. When you have that dual tournament, it can really get you excited, and uh, more mat side with your team. And yeah.
yeah. I really appreciate it because that gives me an opportunity to wrestle. I've wrestled Decorah and Cedar Falls and Cresco, and just teams that we would never ever see during the year. So I really do appreciate that.
Yes.
Why don't we go backwards just a little, actually a long ways, and let's go back to when you got started. When did you start, and kind of what were some of the reasons you started wrestling?
I believe I was like 6. So I can't remember if I was in kindergarten or first grade, somewhere in there. And I was like the biggest tomboy. Like, I was out helping my dad work on cars, running around on the farm, like riding hogs and hunting and fishing. And I think the biggest thing, I was that third child, and I just wanted to do everything that my dad did. And so I was wrestling around with my dad, and I think I got a paper sent home from school for wrestling, and like just a little club in Manson. And my dad's like, "Hey, you want to go try it out?" And of course, I'm this little blonde girl with crazy hair and a basketball uniform out there wrestling around. And um, yeah, that's where it all started. And I really just wrestled for the Manson Club all throughout elementary school and middle school. And then every now and then I'd make it up to one of Dave Storm's practices up in Spencer. And that was like the only time I really ever saw another female on the mat, was going to those, or when the USGWA events started getting bigger and we started holding Iowa events for that. Then we could get a group of girls for Iowa. going to those, but those state tournaments, we would have, three girls in a bracket was about as big as it got. But just to see the growth from that to now is crazy.
Yeah, the USGWA is an interesting thing. I've actually had a conversation with Ken Ballow. I believe he's in Michigan, right? Is
Yep.
where he's from. And he started that whole idea, and he told me the first thing he did was he sent a letter out to every school in Michigan to see if they could get something together. And then he all went surrounding states and kept going out and farther and farther. And he really turned something. Man, that was a big organization before it kind of disbanded. So that's pretty cool that he just had an idea, and man, people went with it. So USGWA, you looks like you may have wrestled in quite a few of those. Were you a 6-time USGWA state champion?
Yeah, at least
All right.
so when Iowa finally started holding it, um, because it took a while for it to kind of like trickle down into Iowa. And yeah, I believe I won that like 6 times. And then they held nationals up in Michigan. And that's where you finally would get some bigger competition. You had girls from all over the US coming to that. And I think I won it, or no, I got second my 8th grade year. And then once I got into high school, that's where, my brackets were 20 to 25 girls. And I think the highest I placed in high school was fourth or fifth. I can't
That's
remember.
still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Uh, you did end up doing a little bit of freestyle and
Yep.
wrestled some USA Wrestling, and you did go to Fargo.
Yep. I
Uh,
started doing freestyle with actually with Cassie Herkelman.
okay.
Um, she was a little bit younger than me, but it was like Cassie Herkelman, Megan Black, Jasmine Bailey, and Ronnie Goodell. We were like kind of like that first group of Iowa girls that I really saw going to Fargo.
Yep. And I know all those girls. I met them. That's neat to know that's the time frame. It's so hard to look back. You get old and you forget where what dates and all these things and who was on what teams. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a pretty good group of girls to go with. Um, Ended up being a Fargo All American for Iowa.
Yep.
Uh,
My senior year, placed third.
that's awesome. That's pretty cool. Manson Northwest Webster. I know Stacy has always been a big supporter of girls wrestling. Takes teams down to Florida every year. How was your experience at Manson?
Oh, it was great. I don't think all girls that started wrestling and boys programs could say that they had like a great experience, but I did. Stacy was like family. Our program was great to me. I never had that issue of finding a practice partner or anything like that. Like all the guys were welcoming. I knew most of them because I grew up wrestling with quite a few of them, and Stacy just made our team feel like family. And I don't know, that high school team, it's hard to like get that feeling, and to be a girl on a team like that. And we were pretty high level at that point too. And that was the first time our school had went to state duels, and we did it twice in my high school career. And I wrestled varsity on and off throughout all my high school career. And there was times that I was wrestling. I remember I wrestled this kid from Ankeny, and he won state that year. And I mean, the match only went maybe a minute, and he slammed my face in the mat. I thought I broke my nose, but those are like core memories. I'm like, that's something you're not going to get all the time. And it was fun, but it was rough.
Yeah. So I coached. I coached in that same conference. I was at South Central Calhoun and coached a couple girls. Started with Keegan King, and I think Keegan came a little bit behind you, but we're probably looking at 8-10 years behind you. And there was still some struggles finding matches and kind of that acceptance. What's your philosophy? What do you think about the girls on co-ed teams versus now, where the opportunity is not there any longer? And I think it's a great thing because I saw so many injuries and stuff. But as someone that had to do it, and you were in that position, not me, what's your thoughts on the co-ed wrestling?
I definitely think like if you have the opportunity to be wrestling girls, that's great. That's what we should be doing and pushing. Um, but some of those girls that need those higher level matches, then we definitely need to be pushing them to get those matches with guys, and just as much mat time as you can get, is gonna make you better. But it's not always the best opportunity for, like, say it's like a girl who's new to wrestling, and then she's going out here wrestling you know these really big guys that maybe she hasn't cut any weight, or it's hard. And definitely if you're a girl wrestling like those mid weights, and then you're wrestling like a senior high school guy that is just all lean and muscle, like that's hard. So I mean, I feel like both ways it can be good for girls to be wrestling guys. But I do love to see like a good competitive match between two girls that are working hard, and there and I feel like at this point we deserve to have that. Definitely in Iowa, like to have uh those matches where we have two competitive girl matches going on, and it's not just a girl standing out against a guy. Yeah, it's fun to beat a guy and to be high level on the men's side too, but I definitely think it's important to have those matches and get it focused on girls, wrestling girls, and maybe less injuries and stuff like that. But
Yeah. So here we'll throw out the age old, well, not the age old, but the newest debate for women. Uh, what do you think about should it be freestyle only all the way through, or do you think that folk style actually improves our opportunities on the world stage?
oh, that one's hard. I like wrestling freestyle better, but I think right now, like it'd be nice for the girls' side to get to where we're wrestling more freestyle, because when you get to college and you see these really high level freestyle wrestlers, they've been doing it for a while. They've been going to clubs and hitting up these international tournaments, and it's it's getting to the point where I feel like we definitely need to be thinking about it. But it also, you have to get the staff. Not all coaches know freestyle, so just getting to the point right now where we're at, I think we should keep it folk style, but I'd like to see it get to the point where high school level is wrestling freestyle.
Okay. So would you recommend uh, if you're planning on going to college and you want to wrestle in college, and maybe you don't know all the time, maybe it just happens, and I'm sure you get a lot of those girls. You might even get some girls that have never wrestled before at this point in time. I know that a few of the other colleges that I know coaches at, some of their best wrestlers ended up never wrestling before they got on the mat with them. Um, but would you recommend that girls, they do some freestyle in the summertime, or get into a club, or at least attend some practices to get that opportunity to learn the sport a little bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If they have the opportunity to at least try it, and if there's somewhere local that they can get into that is giving them some more freestyle opportunities, I think that'd be great. Just to get their foot in the door on it and get them ready. So, maybe they're maybe they're only like 2 or 3 years into wrestling, and they're thinking about wrestling in college. It'd be nice to know kind of what you're getting into before you get there. So, I mean, but we have girls at Iowa Central that have never wrestled freestyle, but you can develop anybody as long as they're willing to learn and grow. So,
Yeah. So you ended up, I'm going to go kind of jumping around here just a little bit, but you did wrestle for Waldorf, the very first college in the state, and I think sometimes they get forgotten about anymore. Very first college to offer women's wrestling, and you did wrestle for Tyrese, is that correct?
um, my coach was actually Dustin Baines.
Oh, okay.
Tyrese, he was assistant on the men's program when I was there,
Okay.
and then he had taken over after Dustin Baines had left. He was
Gotcha. Yeah.
going to coach like D3 or something.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know Tyrese fairly well. I mean, I've had several.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I knew him. He wasn't like at that time my coach, but he was on coach on the men's side.
Yeah. And then that lasted a couple of years and you had an injury, huh?
Yeah, I tore my ACL and meniscus, and I really struggled coming off from that. And at this point in my life, I wish I would have gone back for my last 2 years of eligibility. I didn't really accomplish what I wanted to in college. I was ranked seventh in the nation my freshman year, and I never ended up being an All American where I wanted to be. So, but I mean, I can't go back in time, and at this point in my life, I wish I would have gone back for those extra 2 years, but I wouldn't want to change my life from where I'm at now, being a mom, and the opportunity to coach wrestling now. This is where I want to be. So,
Yeah. And so there's your, like I said at the beginning, there's your biggest title. So being mom, uh, tell me about your family a little bit.
well, I have a son and a daughter. My son's about to turn 8 on October 8th, so it's about to be his golden birthday. And my daughter's 6. They're about 14 months apart, so it's kind of crazy. A second grader and a first grader, and they're my world. I always knew I wanted to coach, and I never knew what job I really wanted. And then I had kids, and I'm like, yep, that was meant to be a mom. That's my number one title, and coaching and all that comes after.
So what brought you back into coaching? Because I know you took a little bit of a break, obviously, uh, having having kids, and stuff. What brought you back into the coaching and back into wrestling?
Um, what kind of brought me back in was they were like Fort Dodge was really pushing when Iowa started sanctioning, and we started a Fort Dodge program. Senior high had a program, and we had all these girls wanting to come in, and my son actually, I think he was 3 about the time, and he decided he wanted to wrestle. So we were going to some practices, and I noticed we had a couple girls in there, and I had talked with Iowa Elite, and I started the little girls program there. And so I think there's getting back involved in it. It was my son wanting to do it, and I saw the need for coaching. And I mean, I think a guy can obviously coach those girls too, but I think some of those little girls, they need to see people who've been there and done it, and they need those relationships with another girl that has been there. And that's one of my favorite things too. I love coaching those elite girls, and they come from preschool, kindergarten, all the way up to middle school, and it's fun. It's fun to see them to get better, and just their personalities on and off the mat.
Yeah, that's you said exactly what I say all the time. I love coaching girls wrestling, but there's not one of those girls that wants to be a fat old 50-year-old dude. Yeah, but they want to, but they can see themselves in you and Paige and Allie and all these great coaches that are out there right now. They can see themselves. So having more females in the sport and coaching is great. What would you, if you were going to give some advice to some former wrestlers, or maybe not even a former wrestler, maybe it's just a mom that's going to the youth practices, how would you advise them to maybe get into coaching and get started? We know dads do it all the time and they don't know a thing about wrestling, but the next thing you know, they're sitting in a corner. How do we get the moms to do that?
Oh, I definitely think just showing up and being at those practices. I I see moms that they come to my practice, and then their daughters go to Cade's practice. He runs the boys side of the program, and they're just sitting there taking it all in, trying to figure out what they need to do, what their kids need to be doing, what their daughters need to be doing. And they're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning in practice too. So just being there and being present, and you know, taking those baby steps and learning every day. Cause I know, like, when I was wrestling, my dad was my coach. So you got to just learn from it and grow. And even if you don't know a lot about wrestling, but you're supporting your daughter, that's what you're what you can do as the mom, just supporting and being uplifting. And I see that a lot anymore where, there's a lot of moms in the corners now, and I love it. And my daughter, she started wrestling last year. She just was doing practices and stuff, but that that really fills my heart up watching her want to go after there and get after it on the mat.
That is awesome. Um, we'll go back to family just a little bit. I know I saw on Facebook. Looks like your son might be following in your footsteps a little bit. Shot his first deer last night.
Yeah, sitting in the blind, and we had about 20 minutes left, and 20 minutes left of daylight, and all of a sudden here comes two does, and we hurry up, stood him up, and got him on him, and next thing you know, they shot the deer. It was awesome.
Yeah, so you're continuing the outdoor activities, the mat activities. That's really cool to your dad passed that down to you. You're passing that down. That is really cool. Challenges there's some different challenges as a female athlete already. Obviously, definitely challenges as a female wrestler because it's a it's a male dominated sport. But we're really making progress and all over the country. But Iowa's doing a great job. But one of the challenges I see is moms and having children. I have seen more babies in wrestling practices and more little toddlers in wrestling practices now than I never saw it before. So I think that's a challenge. Moms having to take their kids into a practice room where dad's left the kids home with mom. So
oh yeah,
is there man, I'm guessing you do that all the time. What is that like to be coaching with a child right there with you?
oh yeah, we see that. And sometimes it depends on your room. Some people they say drop your kid off at the door, and then we want parents to leave. And then some, like me, as long as they're not being disruptive and the athletes can still focus, like if I can get, say it's a little sister and she's 2 or 3 running around, and she might join in our warm up or something, and just kind of get them wanting to be there, then that might develop into, a future wrestler too. So, and I know that can be hard for the mom, but if we can keep it where if she can't focus, and if it's getting to the point where, like, the kid's screaming and all that, then we might go over and be like, hey, can you take them out for a little bit? But sometimes, like, those kids just need to move too. And but them seeing people wrestling around, and then they'll start wrestling over on the corner with another little kid, and
Yeah,
so I
I
see
just
that struggle, but at the same time I think it can be good just to get that future wrestler out there too.
Yeah, I think I've seen it as just, we gotta, the more kids are exposed to it, a lot of times kids aren't exposed to wrestling until middle school because, maybe their families can't afford it. The town they're in doesn't have a club team or something. So the more opportunities we can get younger kids to see the sport, the more our sport's going to grow. I think it's just awesome. I remember, and I'm going to throw this out there, Antonio Barber, he was at Midland University. He was at Dana when I was helping coach at Dana, and then him and Bo Vest were over at Midland. And I knew Barber very well, but I came back and we did a practice there. And one of the girls had a baby during the year. So Barber actually was coaching with like a 6-month-old baby in his arms. It was kind of one of the funniest things I've ever seen at that time. But man, it's going to become part of the sport, and that's great because we're going to get younger kids seeing this, and kids are going to start as soon as they can walk. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I've seen I can't think of her name. I actually wrestled her in college, and now she coaches for college. I saw her last year. I'll have to, if I think of her name, I'll have to let you know. But she's got her son on her back in a little baby sling, and she's out there coaching college level tournaments. I can't think of her name, but I think that's cool to see because, you can be a parent and you can be a mom, but you can still also live your dream and coach. And
it
really takes a village to do it.
Yeah, I really believe the girls wrestling has broken down way more barriers than just girls wrestling. I think it's done amazing things for the whole, the sport as a whole, but then just society as a whole. So yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any final thoughts before we end this little talk?
Um, well, I just want to thank you for thinking of me and doing this, and I hope you can find some more girls that or women, my age that, they kind of started it and have seen that growth. And, I'd love to be 16 again and competing against girls at state and having the opportunity. So I guess, the athletes that are these young girls that are competing right now is, I hope that they can be thankful for the opportunities they have, and they can be thankful and thank their coaches and the people who have pushed for it, because that's huge. And it's just going to keep growing and getting bigger from here on out. So
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and end our interview, and I will talk to you in just a minute.